Hi, I'm Philip Bear, and I'm back today speaking to you about trauma-informed systems approaches. And as I've mentioned in previous days, that trauma-informed non-judgmental systems approaches consider more than just a person's height, their weight, their gender, their ethnicity, level of education, and their class when looking at the individual. It also looks at a range of other parts of how their behavior, how their responses to environments are going to be impacted by how they've been raised, by who they've become in relationship to their parents, in relation to the context in which they were growing up. And the reason why we're talking about a trauma-informed system and using this approach is because we're constantly confronted in our workplaces, in our schools, in basically every environment where people come into contact with one another, with not just the externalities of who that person is, but also what's going on that impacts the way that they basically the range of reactions that are available to them. These are all strongly shaped by aspects of who they've become. And it's extremely rigid. It's not easy for us to shift from being what we've been, I'm going to say the word conditioned to behave in a completely different way. And even though people may encourage us to see the world in a different way, to just change, to just be different, that's not easily possible. There's a process that has to be gone through in order for a person to change um, the way that they are, because the way that they are developed in response to the environment in which they were growing up. And it evolved primarily to maintain belonging and to avoid isolation, to avoid antagonizing the people that we were living with, studying with, growing up around, working with. We had to learn how to fit in to an environment that accommodated to their idiosyncrasies and sensitivities. And so one of the things that we'll be looking at today is how um, parents or the environment's need for us to be a particular way impacted whether or not we would be able to participate in the context that we needed to be. So whether it was living within the school context, living within our family's environment, being able to fit into the workplace. And one of the examples is an example where parents encourage the child to be successful in an athletic endeavor, for example. So essentially the message that comes across to the parents is that you're much more lovable. We accept you. We embrace you much more when you're excelling athletically. And when you're not, well, that unconditional love's not that unconditional. We're not going to be as act as favorably towards you. We're not going to elevate you in esteem and privilege relative to your siblings, relative to other people that we're encountering. You're going to feel less loved. And as I've spoken about before, the less loved, the less accepted we feel, the higher our level of pain. So acceptance is a diminishing of pain. Rejection, isolation increases emotional pain. And it's easy to dismiss emotional pain because physical pain, you can see physical signs of the bleeding or the swelling or something that confirms that there's something going on. But when we're talking about emotional pain, it's those feelings of loneliness, of isolation, of rejection, of lack of self-worth, a whole bunch of different things that are going on inside of us that might be as painful as a physical injury, but that we've kind of learned to um, de-emphasize because other people don't see it, because other people don't understand it. So it's not as easy for us to feel comfortable letting people know about the distress that we're in. But that distress modifies how we relate in social circumstances. Do we become more clingy in order to maintain that contact? Do we become more isolated because it hurts when there's a chance of connection and that gets broken off? Um, do we seek to excel academically, athletically, musically, in terms of for those people who are close to the helping professions, so working in nursing or childcare or something like that? In a case like that, a person may have grown up to receive love or to have love conditional on being helping, on being of assistance, of caretaking. So we can see how this influences a person in their day-to-day life. And when we're encountering a child who's acting out in school, what we are wanting to bring, if we're coming from a trauma-informed approach, is a sensitivity to what this child believes that they need to do, how they believe that they have to present themselves based on the experience in order to be worthy of acceptance and love. Do they have to be funny? Do they have to be quick? Do they have to be quiet? What is it that shapes their being? Because remember, acceptance is a diminishing of pain. Rejection is an increase in pain. And when we talk about pain, it's the equivalent of having our arm broken. It's the equivalent of being burnt. It's the equivalent of having our head held under the water and not being able to breathe. That's the intensity of the pain that we feel emotionally on a day-to-day basis, but that we don't validate in the same way that we validate physical pain. So I'm going to leave us there with that awareness that in order to be worthy of love, every person that you're encountering is going to go through a way, or is going to present in a particular way that they associate with worthiness for love. So this has been Philip Bear talking about trauma-informed systems approaches, and you can find more of my work on www.b-loops.com. And this is all based on the Learning to Love curriculum. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye-bye for now.